Hey, what's it like to make videos for a living and be out in the outdoors and taking all kinds of videos and have producing such great products? Well, we're going to find out today on Arch Talk 101. I'm going to be your host today. My name is Roy, and I have Isaac Snow on the line with us, and we're going to talk about what it takes to create some good quality videos, as well as talk about his archery ventures and other things as we get along there. Just to let everybody know. You can watch this video on the Archtalk 101 Facebook group. We go live in that group. You can also watch it on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. And the audio part comes out on Spotify and on Audible. You can get it there. So just go out there and search for Archtalk 101 and you'll be able to listen to it or watch it. So, Isaac, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Uh, Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a big game hunting guide in Montana right now. I've only been out here for about a year now and really getting my teeth cut on the western hunting side of things with elk and mule deer, bear, lion, all that stuff, which have some experience in the past, but really kind of getting my fingers into it now and taking care of a ranch. Uh, it's about a 10,000 acre ranch, and I just basically manage it primarily for the hunting and any type of, I guess, string that we might have to pull in order to get one of the landowners a tag or something like that. I'm in charge of guiding those hunts. Like this year, we offered, I think we gave up 6 cow hunts. It's a program the state of Montana has where you apply for these cow tags, and in return, my owners got bull tags. So that was really my first season here in Montana. But originally, I managed a ranch in Missouri for about 13 years. It was about a 3,500 acre piece of property, had a 1,000 acre private lake on the eastern border. Really, it was the dream farm as far as just being set up, and I feel like it was it was my blessing and my platform to learn off of, because I started there at 18 and I was young and green, and luckily my bosses, my owners, they really just kind of gave me the reins on it. They always trusted my judgment because I had been managing ranches with my dad since I was 14, 15 years old, and I kind of knew the ropes, and so they tossed it in my lap, and I ran with it. And over the course of that 13 years, I don't know the exact numbers, but I mean, dozens of Boone and Crockett whitetails that I was able to partake and guide, and two over 200, and, kind of, I guess, accomplished all the goals that I wanted to accomplish in the whitetail management world. And also all that time doing filming and photography and working on projects with other people, and that's why I've kind of, I guess, graduated up onto the western ranches, trying to challenge my abilities and learn new things and plant new species of food plots, or whatever you want to call them. They're not really food plots here, but hay fields and stuff. So it's all very interesting. I'm very blessed to have been able to do what I do, and I guess been able to learn just without anybody hovering over me. I've always had free reign to learn and explore and experiment in different ways on managing a ranch or with photography in the ways that I see please, you know.
That
So
that's always good when they just say, "Here, go."
you're right, right. But you still have to deliver, so that's kind
Right.
of where the stress plate comes in.
Yeah. You just got to, if you don't deliver, they're not going to say go no more. They're going to say stop and go away.
Right, they're going to start giving you chores.
Yeah.
So,
So if somebody wanted to hunt in Montana, how would they get a hold of you?
so right now everything I do is totally private. Um, I am a licensed guide here, and I'm not opposed to doing some guiding in the future, but right now my hands are so full with just my operation, just my management operation, that I'm not looking to take any clients right now.
Okay.
Uh, And I guess I don't really have the confidence yet either. I would like to get 3 years under my belt before I start taking under other people out to try and pursue Western game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, when you get ready for that, hey, let's get you back on and we'll talk about getting people to up there to Montana. I imagine they got a lot of nice animals up there to shoot.
Yeah, yeah. So the area that I'm in, the ranch that I run, is a really interesting part of Montana because about I mean I want to say I heard in 1984, back in 1984, there were no elk in this region of Montana due to market hunting at the turn of the 19th century, turn of the 20th century, sorry. And there was no elk. They were basically completely eradicated from this region. And in the early 80s, there was a small herd of cows and calves that migrated down from the Missouri Breaks in northern Montana. And there was like 20, 25 of them, and they got reestablished in the Little Wolf Mountains where we're at now. And now it is off the charts. I mean, it's unbelievable. The not just the number, but the how well the elk and mule deer are thriving, and just the size of these bulls are unlike anything I've seen. Just the way they carry their mass and the sheer numbers of them is pretty incredible. It's a pretty special place.
Yeah, that's pretty good. They just kind of migrated. You didn't have to put them in there. They just kind of come down and just going crazy because great
Right,
area and no competition. They can grow as big as they want.
right. And I guess that's probably the most interesting part. Uh, Being out here is the ranch that I'm running. The deed hadn't changed hands on this property for over 100 years. It was just an operating cattle ranch, and that was it. You know, the I guess the cowboy way of hunting was all they ever really did. So now I'm getting to see, what I can do with the property to really enhance it, to really pull that wildlife in. Now that it's not a for-profit ranch, we can really try and turn it into Yellowstone in any way we can by incorporating water or hay fields and stuff like that that will really draw those animals in and hopefully even have a resident herd there.
That would be good. That's a good goal.
Yeah, yeah. But it's all that's why it's also interesting because there's so many unknowns. Nobody's done what I've done where I'm doing it. So it's kind of learn as you go, really.
Got your work cut out for you, but that's what makes it enjoyable, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just
Yeah.
be obsessed at making it the best property you can, and it will be, right?
Yep. Yep. Have you done any elk hunting?
No, I have not done any elk hunting. That's one I haven't done, and um, it'd be kind of interesting to go out on a elk hunt and call them in and get them up close enough I can shoot with my bow. And
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing else like it. I was managing that property in Missouri, and I went to southern Colorado one time, private ranch, and I didn't even kill an elk, but just the experience of being out there at first light, fog in the valleys, elk bugling. I mean, I went home and I'd wake up at night, I could still hear the elk bugling in my ears.
oh
And
yeah,
I told myself, there's a will, there's a way. I'm gonna find my way out west one of these days and do something like that. And luckily this fell right into my lap. So
yeah, it's always nice, kind of like the turkeys when you get out there and you start gobbling, they gobbling back, and then you close the door and they're gobbling at you, and the train comes by, they're gobbling at the train, and just all kinds of noise in the spring, and I imagine on the elk side even more because the sound they make is just it's really kind of cool, I think.
yeah, the sound they make and the method on how you hunt them, it's so. I have nothing against hunting whitetails in the Midwest. I had a blast doing it. I still have a blast doing it, but just the strategic aspect of elk hunting is what I like. I feel like I'm playing chess with an animal. It's cat and mouse, and they're always just out of range or just over the hill, or working your wind or trying to get the high ground on you, and you've always got to try and counteract that. And you're always on foot, you're always active, and I just really enjoy the game of elk hunting.
Yeah, it's going to be a little different. What if somebody was going to go out on elk hunt? What kind of advice would you give them before they go on the hunt?
Um, First and foremost, I guess just the things that really popped out and have screamed at me in the last 3 years of the basic fundamentals. And I'm no expert here, but just things that I've observed is uh, you don't really even have to mention wind because we all know what's going to happen when an elk gets downwind. So, and not to mention when you're in the mountains, you really have no consistent wind. You've got thermals coming down, going up, and then you might have a consistent wind during the day, but trying to play that wind is always difficult. But what I would say is most important is call less than you think you should, and always try and take the high ground on the animal if that opportunity presents itself. If you feel like you can get above that animal and parallel your wind versus having your wind perfect and being on the same altitude as him, it's I don't know what it is, but those the especially the bulls, when you get calling at them and trying to pull them to you, they always want to try and take the high ground on you while also getting your wind. And so it kind of lays out a good little blueprint for you when you are working the bull. It's like, okay, if I'm calling here, I need a guy uphill from me 20 yards and probably, another 20 yards closer to that bull because he's going to try and circle. He's going to try and get your wind. And most of the time he's going to try and circle on the top side from what I've noticed. And and then in that situation, I feel like I've noticed it's very similar to turkey calling in the sense that you never really want to give them what they want to hear. You just want to tease them a little bit. And the buglings and stuff like that, I know there's guys who are absolutely phenomenal at it and could probably make me look like a kindergartner out there. But referring to the cow calling, you almost want to sound like a cow that's not interested or half interested and is almost working away, getting quieter and losing ground on that bull because it's gonna trigger curiosity, and curiosity will kill the cat every time.
Yeah.
It it's how you position yourself. If you can get on a break and you've got a bull coming from this direction and you can get over the backside of that break to where he has to commit, he has to come up to the high ground and commit to see you and see where that sound is coming from, that's where you're going to get your shot because he's willing to make that commitment. Where if you put him on level ground, he's going to hang up at 100 yards because he can see 50 yards in front of him because of the way the terrain lays. So there's a lot of different little factors like that I'm always trying to throw in, and they're not always 100%, but they definitely help you out.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. You're on one side of the hill and the bull's on the other side of the hill, and he actually has to commit to get over the crest of it. So now he's kind of slid at the top of the hill, so you can see him real easy, and he may not be able to see you because you're hidden and everything else. And so then he comes
Correct. And
down to you.
yeah, and in the moment, it kind of goes against your instincts. A lot of times, you want to take that last 50 yards. You want to get to the top of the hill and take that last little bit of distance on that animal. Where if you hang back and you're a little more reserved on your calling, I feel like it's gonna it's gonna increase your chances of him committing within bow range. Is if he can't see you and he has to commit to where you want him to commit to in order to get your shot.
That's some good advice. I hadn't thought about that, and of course not doing much elk hunting. I don't know those stories, so that's some good information. We get out there, have to think about that.
Yeah, well, then you got to make the shot, and I've had my share of mess ups. Like I said, I'm no professional here.
Yeah, we all have our share of mess ups in shooting a bow, and hopefully they're not too many, and you can spread them out for a long ways. But that's just one of the things with archery, and well, even shooting with a gun. You know,
Hmm.
you're gonna get that shot and you're gonna mess it up, and hopefully you practice enough that you don't have to think about it. It's just you do everything process, go through, shoot, 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 and shoot, and do a lot of shooting, and now then it's just a habit. You don't even think about it.
Hmm. Yep, exactly. And that was one of the hardest habits I guess I had to break, is because I've hunted whitetails on the ground and pigs and everything else. I felt like I had a pretty good ground game on, concealing myself and stuff like that. And when I started elk hunting, I would always try and retreat to cover and try and conceal myself and hide in a place where I could draw. But after hunting them for a few years and advice from some guys that I work with who have been doing a lot longer than I have, man, if you've got a bull at 50 yards and he's coming and you've got a tree, just stand in front of the tree. They are not whitetails. They cannot pick you out if you're not moving, it doesn't seem like. So I would always screw myself over by doing that. I'd always put myself in a bad spot thinking that I needed the concealment to get my bow drawn back, or so that he wouldn't see me when he's coming in, because I thought it was too open of a scenery or whatever. And I screwed myself over with that several times. I learned that it's like that movie Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
when they get out of the car and the guy tells the kids not to move. It's very similar to that. As long as you don't move, they don't see you. But I would also argue that their motion detection compared to a whitetail is probably better. Where, a whitetail, if you stand on the front side of a tree, or even a mule deer, you stand on the front side of the tree, they're going to spot you from 50 yards away and start blowing. An elk won't. As long as you don't move, they'll run you right over. So I had to learn the hard way. Let them just walk straight at you. Don't try and get concealed. And then in the whitetail world, where a lot of times I'm obsessed with stopping. I won't shoot a moving animal. So I'm always trying to give them a grunt or whatever to stop a whitetail. Or an elk, you can kind of just use your draw cycle to stop them, because that's going to be the first movement they see. And so when you decide to move, you're holding dead still, and they finally commit and they're within range, and you decide, okay, I'm going to draw my bow. They're just going to stop and they're going to stare, and you take your shot. It's a hard thing to force yourself to do when you grew up hunting whitetails your whole life, and you're so wired and so uh, pre-programmed to believe that that animal's just going to bust as soon as you try to draw your bow, and that's not the case with elk. It's just different, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting where they're keyed into movement, and then they're going to try and figure out what the movement is. So if you get all draw back and then you stop and don't move, then they're kind of trying to figure out what you are. They don't know because they
Yep.
just see movement to try and figure out what the movement is. So they're going to stare at you, and hopefully they give you a shot. Um,
Correct.
and then they turn enough broadside that you can get your shot off. And I guess that's why you see some of these videos. The archers are coming out that the elk is within inches of the end of the broadhead. They're at full
Hmm.
draw and almost touching the elk. And,
Yeah.
and now I kind of know why they don't see you move.
Hmm.
And if they don't smell you, then how is their nose compared to like a whitetail?
um it's really good. The one thing I've noticed where I would say fall short compared to a whitetail would be they don't seem to be affected by a boot trail. Occasionally they'll hit your where you've walked and they'll smell and they won't like it, but most of the time they won't even they won't even pay attention. And that could be due to drier soils out here and stuff like that, drier stuff. And
Yeah,
a whitetail doe will hit your track, and every time she'll walk it right to the tree.
yeah.
She never walks it back to the truck.
Yeah, I've seen that where they've come down and just kind of walk right up to the tree and kind of sniffing around the bottom of the tree. It's like, you're too close. I can't shoot you underneath my tree stand.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, elk, they don't seem to pick it up on the ground quite like a whitetail will. And that's that's one less thing to worry about. They're hard enough to kill the way it is.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
Yeah. But we had actually this year was my first year guiding hunts, and I had two encounters with my boss, Don Barry. He had two really close encounters, two really good bulls, and one, I mean, we've got it on video. The bull, like I was talking, it was a situation where that bull had crested up over the hill, and Don had positioned himself right at the top. I mean, he comes up and just screams right in Don's face. And I'm watching from a distance thinking, man, are you going to kill this thing or what? And he never did get his bow drawn back. In a scenario like that, you got to draw your bow when you know they're coming and committing. But in that scenario, I guess in his defense, he wanted to get a better judge of what the bull was and before he took the shot. But I was a little more bloodthirsty than he was. So
Yeah, yeah. When you're not drawn and they're right on top of you, that can be tough to get drawn because you're so close.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So many stories. I like hearing all these different stories of um, what everybody's doing, and it's just so fun. All these stories, and I know you've got you got a lot of videos that you've created, and tell us about what it's like to be out there hunting and trying to create some of these videos and um,
Yeah, so the biggest project I've done this far, and I hope I can pick it up again next fall. But I filmed some hunts for a nonprofit organization that some guys that I work with created. It's called God's Country for Our Heroes, and we take wounded veterans out hunting. We donate the hunts on private land. We guide them, we help them, we feed them, everything. And that was a really fun project to get to meet some veterans who have kind of had a bad roll of the dice, I guess, and can't really can't really indulge in the outdoors the way you and I do. And we were able to help them do that. And then, like you said, I was able to document it. But the video and picture stuff it's a whole nother ball of wax. It's very challenging. I'm extremely picky on my shots and stuff like that. I don't love filming hunts. I'm more geared toward just wildlife photography and wildlife videography because hunts are they're so hard to get everything, get all the pieces you need to build a
right,
story that's going to be interesting for everyone to listen to. And sometimes all those pieces are there, and other times I feel like you're just trying to scrap stuff together and you're putting out a bad product just to get the hunt out there. And that part is definitely challenging because you know how many variables there are when you're hunting and
oh
how many
yeah,
crazy different things can happen at the drop of a hat, and you miss a shot, double punch the record button, you're out of focus, whatever it is. It's a whole nother level of challenge. But I would also say that it's like a sport in itself. You know, it you get a high off of guiding, you get a high off of videoing a great hunt or just being part of a great hunt. And it's it's really kind of where my heart is pulling me now more than I guess harvesting animals myself is documenting it, not only hunting them but just the other day I went on a mountain lion hunt, and we didn't shoot the mountain lion, but I got incredible pictures and video and unbelievable scenery. We were up at the top of the Little Wolf Mountains. We could see clear to Billings on one side and see clear to eastern Montana on the other side, and nothing but hounds barking up there. It's pretty incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I know, we was talking about this on a previous podcast, but when you're, he was on some hunts where the other people were video and you get the video of the kill, but then you don't have anything else. You got to go back and create other videos to kind of lead up to it. And yeah, I can see how that can be a little challenging in editing videos, with my
Yes.
YouTube channel. Now the podcasts, I don't edit those. I just put them out like it is. And when it goes up to YouTube, I put the little thumbnails at the end and other than that, but all the rest of the videos I create, I edit them. And
Mhm.
you if you got an hour long video, you have to watch the whole hour to figure out what you want to keep. And sometimes watching it again, cut and fit it together. And yeah, you could easily take an hour and a half long video and spend 3 hours to make a 45-minute video.
Yes, I'm glad you said something about that because that's part of my hang up on it is I love doing the video stuff, especially for myself. But and I call myself a videographer and a photographer, but I'm not an editor. I don't love it. I can do it, and sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes not so much, but I am not an editor. It's not something I have a love and passion for. I just do it because it's part of the process.
Yeah, and I use DaVinci Resolve
Yeah.
that I edit with. A lot of movie studios will use that, and there's so many things it'll do. I'm discovering new things it'll do because I do basic stuff, and it's like, okay, I want to do something different. I want to do something different, and then you just kind of add on, and there's just so many things you can do. And sometimes that's kind of the fun part is putting in some of these other features and
Yeah.
transitioning from one clip to another clip, so it's not just here and then all of a sudden jump to the next one. You got to kind of transition and put something in and put text on it and have the text scrolling around and
Right. And there's people out there that are so talented that can do that every day and just crank out amazing inspirational stuff. And I'm the type where I gotta be in the right mood to put out something good. If you put a bunch of pressure on me, I don't feel I can be that creative.
yeah, you take your video and have somebody else actually put them together for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how they do it in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, the cameraman doesn't edit the videos, and somebody else is
No.
editing them, and then you're narrating them, and then you can take and narrate on top of your videos.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can tune the voice down or shut it off completely, and you can hear a little bit of background of what's going on originally, but then you're talking over it, and that's where you're talking about different stuff going on. Because when you're out there hunting, you can't talk very loud.
Hmm.
You're kind of whispering or whatever, and nobody can figure out what you're saying because you can't hear what you're saying, and it's just and you're listening to it. It's like, what did I say? And it was you that said it. So they
Yeah.
narrate over them, and there's all kinds of things you can do with them,
Mhm.
and sometimes I think that's the fun part is putting all those things together, doing different, trying different things, and
Right.
you know, I right now I'm using the free version, but I'm going to go to the paid version of DaVinci, and because there's other features in there that I'm just like, oh, I want to try this. Oh, it's in the
Right.
paid version. It's $300 one time shot, so
Yeah.
it's cheap. Now, some of the
Yeah.
other stuff you want to do, there's other things you can add to it, but um, right now it's just so much fun. I think to create some of those videos and when you're getting different angles and then the camera is not in the right spot and then it's like, okay, I've already done this, I'm not tearing this part apart just to do the video again. So now then you have to kind of go around it, and
Yeah.
yeah, you lose a piece of the video and it's like, well, I didn't record this piece, I lost the video somehow. It's like, okay, skip forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of what's unfortunate about, I shouldn't say it's unfortunate, but there's a lot of times where I'm guiding where it's like, man, if I had a camera in my hands, but there's a lot of times like I just can't do both at one time. I can't guide and call and glass and film and drive the Ranger and, you know, everything plus try and film or take pictures on top of it. It can be really challenging, but man, I have missed some amazing shots when I was just guiding or whatever. And I think that's what's pretty cool about where we're at now with cell phones is, when I first picked up a DSLR camera, it was significantly better than the camera on my phone.
Yeah,
And now if I have good lighting, boy, it's tough to I mean, it's close. A new Samsung shooting 4K at 60 frames per second, it's pretty darn good video right out of your phone.
Yeah, and I got a fairly new one, and I do except for the podcast, which I do on my computer at home. I got a Logitech 920 camera, which you know, I was amazed at how much clearer that was. You know, on this camera, you can tell if I didn't shave this morning. You know, the other one was it was just all blurry, and
Yeah.
everything else I've done on my phone. I use my phone for everything else, and the quality of the videos are just amazing how clear they are.
Hmm.
And you've got the zoom features and you got panoramic features. I got slow motion, which I haven't done any slow motion yet, but one of these days I'm going to try it. You know, maybe when I'm shooting my bow, record it in slow motion so I can see what's going on and just
Right.
create some different videos like that. And sometimes you record them in the vertical mode, but you really want them horizontal. I don't want to re-record it because I've already missed. I've done what I need to do, and I'm not going to untear everything apart. Like if you're building something, once I cut it and assemble it and glue it together or bolt it on, I don't want to unbolt it all and just record. So I can actually rotate it and then blow it up and all
Yep.
kinds of different things. So that's kind of neat when you can do all that stuff. And I went through when I first started creating videos. I forget what the program was, and I'd take the video and then I'd run it through there to edit it, and it kind of make the pictures smaller and just all kind of goofy stuff. And then I found another one that a little bit better, but not what I wanted. And then so I'm looking for different video editing programs, and I come across DaVinci Resolve probably about 2 years ago, two and
Yeah.
a half years ago, something like that. And it's like, oh man, this movie studios use this to create movies.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, they got a free version. So I started
Yeah.
using that and then getting more and more features and more and more features. And it's like, I could use this for years and never need the paid version. But
Yeah.
then now I got to the point where it's like, okay, I want to take like and see some of the videos, like on the YouTube, you'll have the little subscribe button and the bell, and you click on that. And I need to be able to remove the background off of an image I create like that. That's the free version. So I
Hmm.
got to the point where there's things I want to do that's in the paid version that I don't have access to in the free version. So I'm going to go ahead and get that here one of these days, and watch my YouTube channel. You're going to see different things showing up because I'm learning how to do stuff, and there's things in there that I I've seen how they do them, and make different logos and screens coming in and doing all kinds of weird stuff and spinning around and all kind of
Hmm.
cool stuff. And I can do that in the free version. I just got to sit down and take some time to figure out how to do it. And
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. Like you can do that with a free version, and my dad started uh, filming hunts and stuff for Hunter Specialties way back in like the early 2000s. And I remember him telling me their first editing setup. I don't quote me on it, but it was like eight or $10,000 for their first editing setup so that they could edit and record onto VHS tapes. And now it's free on your computer.
yeah, yeah, I can remember recording on VHS tapes. I
Yeah.
actually went on a hog hunt down in south part of Texas, and Uh, that's when they're supposed to be set up for an archery, but they didn't set up for archery. They always, bait and stuff. Well, the last day I hadn't got a deer or a deer, a hog or a javelina yet. And the guy went down, he did rifle. So he'd already got his. So I used his rifle. And so he's recording me shooting. And this javelina comes out. Then I missed. Like first I missed. I ended up getting one later, but so at that time I had a VCR player that I could do frame advancing. Most of them you just got to play, stop, play, stop, play, stop. This
Yep.
one I could actually dial in frame advance. So I want to see where my bullet hit because I couldn't tell because I looked at the scope. So I take it there and frame advance, and one of the frames I actually caught the vapor trail from the bullet
Mm.
on a
Yep.
VCR. It just so happened it took a picture and that bullet was mid-flight. And then I go
Yep.
through and see where I hit. Shouldn't have they're not very big, they're only, maybe 6, 8 inches tall.
Yeah.
But that was interesting how it was able to catch on such low quality VCR tape that was able to catch the bullet mid flight.
Yeah, and we've learned, all of us guides now, or the guides that I work with, like when you have a client and he's at full draw, it's law. You should have your phone out and recording because we have it and we can, and it's so valuable. Like you're saying, you were able to go frame by frame back, and now we can do that with our cell phones. We can shoot it at 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second and 4K, and go back frame by frame and see exactly where a client hits an animal, and kind of make your decision from there on whether you're going to press forward or not.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Just as the guiding somebody, it's like, okay, now you got this video. You're actually, you can see where your arrow hit, and it's like, okay, this was a little too far back.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna wait. We're gonna come back after we eat breakfast or lunch or whatever it is, and come back in 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
And so okay, let's go find the first blood trail and let's mark it,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back because they're going to run off far enough. You can go find the first blood trail, and if you can find your arrow, if it passed through, and then where to start looking from there, and then you can mark, okay, it went this way. Maybe find
Yeah.
a couple bloods so you at least have a trail to go. And I've done that before, and didn't get the best hit. I just got in my tree stand. I want to be there at 4, about 10 after this deer come trotting by. Some kids were up further north of me and kicked the deer up and is running by. And I'm thinking, okay, as it's coming, do I follow it or just wait for it? And I end up getting a gut shot.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So I waited about an hour and a half for my guys hunting with to come by, and we went and found the blood trail. And so this is, maybe 2 hours after we'd shot it. Started walking about 30 yards from where I shot it. It got up and run, and we looked, okay, blood trail. So come back the next night, and we'd had about 4 inches of snow, and it got down to about 20. We found it. I found a
Yeah.
pile of snow that had a lump underneath it, and it happened to be the deer.
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you know, so one of those things. I said on the last podcast I talked about that one, and that was interesting. How you've got that much snow. There is no blood trail. There is no
Yeah.
footprints in the mud.
Yeah.
Just walk around it, and hopefully you can find it. And we found it.
Mm.
I come across it, and it was still warm inside.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It reminds me. So this year we had, I would say the most memorable hunt I had was with one of my owners. He's 79 years old, and he was bound and determined he's going to go elk hunting. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. And we really struggled at first to find a bull that was big enough caliber for him to shoot. And it was day 3 or 4, and it was raining like a son of a gun. Clouds were rolling in, so when we got up high, we were fighting the clouds to see down and find a bull. But um, it was just right at the crack of dawn, and I had another guide with me from the western part of the state. He was helping me out. I have to give him credit. He wanted to go to this spot extra early in the dark and be there, in the dark. I'm like, all right, done deal. So it's piss pouring rain. Our hunter stayed in the Ranger because it was so cold and windy and rainy. And I just caught a glimpse. Well, first Brad spotted this bull. He said, I see a bull over here. So I go over there. I set up my scope. I look in the scope, and here's this bull that another client had actually hit earlier in the season. And I'm talking like a Magnum 380, 390, freaking giant bull. And I can tell he's kind of gimping. I can tell he's real peaked, not doing so good from being hit. And long story short, we put a couple moves on him, and the next day we were waiting in a spot for him to come out. And my guide had actually spotted him on his way to us across a different valley, and we ended up going after him. But what was funny is my hunter, he likes to shoot off of one of those I think it's called death grip. Have you heard of those?
Uh-uh.
So it's like a tripod, and it's kind of the same concept as a lead sled, only it's portable. So you got a tripod, and you've literally got a vise up on the top of the thing that you can vise the gun right into. And I didn't have one. All I had was these shocky sticks, and he wasn't real comfortable shooting off these shocky sticks. And he's 79, I get it. We're not spring chickens anymore, but when I had him practice, I had him put a lead sled on a blue cooler, and he's like, "Boy, that's rock solid. I could take a long shot with that." So when we're chasing after this bull that had been hit, shot bad, and we're chasing after this bull and ended up having to walk a few hundred yards, and I'm dragging. Oh, I had a tripod, a backpack, binos, a blue cooler, a lead sled. I drug it all with me so that he could try and make the shot, and we ended up bumping the bull. It was just a bummer. It broke my heart. I wanted him to kill one, but it was pretty comical.
Yeah, you're kind of the pack mule.
Yeah, it's
You're carrying
exactly that.
everything
Thank
in.
God. Yeah, cooler and all.
Yeah, it's I know that when I rifle season this last time, I've got a chair I carried along with me to sit on the ground overlooking the field where I'm going to hunt, and I've got my tripod with me because I want to video it. So I got my phone, I got the tripod, so I'm carrying the tripod, carrying that. I've got my rifle, and got my backpack, and I was like, I'm like a pack mule, and I'm just carrying down everything down there. And I didn't have to go very far because we just pull in on one side of the hill, and I just walked over the hill and down probably 100 yards. But I set up about 70 yards away from where they were going to come through, which had a ladder stand down there. Um, but you got all that stuff, and I can actually control my phone off my watch, and I can see it. I can zoom in and stuff on there, and I found
Yeah.
on my phone I could just kind of swipe down and get it started quicker because you don't have a lot of time when they come in.
Mm-mm.
So I'm sitting up there, and here comes this deer. I see it, so I get the camera started, and then I'm watching, and then I'm trying to zoom in, and then the crazy camera gets it. Don't know where to focus, so it's going in and out, in and out, in and out, and it's trying to zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, and so I kind of back to back off, and then it went running off, and then I seen two more those come running through the field off where they went, and I'm like, oh man, I was hoping she'd come across on my side of the property,
Yeah. Yeah.
but didn't. So I think we might put up a feeder down there and one of those gravity feeders and
Yeah.
get some food so they come on the property because they don't come on the property a lot, mostly at night. Except
Hmm.
that I did see them there. I do see them once in a while, but not as often as I'd like. So I want to try and get them there, over the winter time, get them used to coming there and get a feeder going out there, and then of course before hunting season you have to pull your feeder. I think like Nebraska, it's 30 days before hunting season starts. But
Yeah.
you don't want to feed them then, but they're used to coming there, and
Right.
get them a reason to come onto the property during the daylight.
Right. What kind of terrain are you hunting? What kind of access do you have and stuff like that in
Um,
Nebraska?
well, where I'm at anyway, um, we can actually drive our four-wheeler when there's not crops in the field to the one property, right up to where we could sit on the back of the four-wheeler and hunt.
Okay.
We pull it off further because we don't want them to see it if they're coming through. The other property is mostly just that there's a row of trees around the property. There's two fields. There's an alfalfa field and either corn or beans, depending on what they're putting in the deer. And it's basically just a pass through. It's a road they pass through. They don't really hang out in the property too much. Um, especially after the corn's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, no reason to come in there until the corn's gone. They probably come in for the corn, but um, yeah, that's the two properties I have. One's a little over a mile from my house to the highway is about a mile, and then just cross the highway and there's the property. It's 80 acres, and then
Hmm.
the other property is about 2 miles away,
Yeah.
and it's probably 80, 100 acres, something like that. I don't remember now, but we're going to try and see if we can find something a little more trees on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of
It's
coyotes and,
getting
and
harder. it's getting harder and harder to find access, to find ground you can hunt. You know what?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's disappearing. If you're too far away from the city, then it's a long drive. But
Right.
close to the bigger cities, and I'm a little village, 168 people, but
Oh, nice.
I'm about 35 to 40 miles, 45 miles to Omaha, and same to Lincoln, and same to Fremont. So I've got the two largest cities in Nebraska are within 45 minutes for me. So
Yeah.
there's some public lands that we might try some of those next year, but you can't drive onto those, so got to
Right.
walk back.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be another big pointer for people on elk hunting, because most of the time when people elk hunt, they're on public ground. And like where I live, I'm about 25 miles from a pot machine. So we live in the middle of nowhere. And if you're willing to put the miles on, if you're willing to do some driving, you can find some pretty respectable hunting. It's going to be in no man's land. It's probably not going to look like the best hunting, but I've seen nice bulls and nice mule deer on just random state sections out in the middle of nowhere that no one will probably ever hunt.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about if you go in there and you've got a mile hike into your hunting property. um,
Mhm.
Most of us don't want to go that far. The
No,
older I
not
get,
at
the
all.
less I want to walk that far.
Right,
Well,
right.
walking that far, I'd be done then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's challenging. I do like the fact that the elk and mule deer are kind of always they're always changing that home range on you. A whitetail, it's like he finds his home range, especially as he matures and he really settles into a lot of times a tight routine, a tight pattern from food to bedding, and finds an area that he likes and he sticks with it. Where these elk and mule deer and antelope, they kind of give you an advantage in that sense because they don't seem to get stuck in one spot. They don't seem to get stuck on the neighbor's property and find a little haven. They're a migratory animal and eventually they're going to move when it comes time to rut or anything like that. And I feel like you could really capitalize on that if you did your homework, especially in Montana.
Yeah, yeah. Montana's got a lot of open ground, and
It's a wild place, man.
yeah,
Wildfires and cats and bears and people fighting and everything else. So the reason I got this job out here, have you ever seen the TV show Yellowstone?
yeah,
So I had never seen it. I had never seen it until I knew I was going to move out here, and the ranch that I'm managing was, like I said, operating cattle ranch for over 100 years. And the guy who was coming up and supposed to be taking it over, his name was Tyler Pennington, rest in peace. His wife killed him in the house that they were living in. And so they didn't have anyone to take over the ranch. So basically they were kind of forced to sell, and that's where I fell into place. But that's what I mean by it's a wild place. When you're that far out in the middle of nowhere, you, you gotta keep your ducks in a row. I feel like you can lose your marbles pretty quick
yeah,
and kill your spouse, which I would, you know, but it's a wild place. There's wild people, wild animals, but it's a lot of fun.
yeah. It sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. You got all kinds of different animals to hunt.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's what's neat is they've got the spring bear season, and right now in the winter when I'm used to doing nothing, we're gonna keep running lions and keep doing that, and I might shoot one. I don't know.
yeah. We have, of course, the whitetails, and then out western Nebraska with that mule deer. We got some pronghorn, of course, turkeys, of course, and there's bobcats here to hunt. There are some lions here.
Yeah,
Game parks wouldn't admit it for a long time until one got killed on the highway here. But
yeah,
I've seen a couple of them. You know, Hunting partner and I was coming home one time, and this this mountain lion just just a little small one, just run across the road. And it was like, okay, what was that? It's like, that wasn't a normal animal that run across this. And then at the farmers hunting, we're up on top of the hill and we're looked down at the bottom of the hill and they got the big round bales of hay. And we've seen something jump up on top of it. Well, it wasn't a coyote because the tail was way too long. So that
Yeah.
was another time we've seen a lion. And
Yeah.
you know, farmers said, back in the 60s, they'd see footprints in the hills there. You're not
Hmm.
going to see them now pretty much because next to the property, they built a whole bunch of houses. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, that's what disappears a lot of the hunting properties is next thing you know, there's where you're hunting, there's houses there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see how all this stuff is changing, especially with the predators since conservation has been incorporated in the US. It, kind of like the elk herd that I'm trying to manage, it's only been there since the early 80s. Well, prior, prior to market hunting back in the 1800s, when there was a healthy elk population there, you also would have found bighorn sheep there. You also would have found grizzly bears there. So, my mind, I'm not a big fan of grizzlies, and as of right now, there's none in our area. But if I was going to prophesize, I would say that within about a 10-year period, the grizzlies are going to show back up because their food sources is
Right.
back and reestablished. So,
Yeah, if there's no food source, they're going to move to where the food is. And now that there's food there, they'll move back in.
yeah,
Like the elk moved in because probably where they was at, the herd was getting large enough, not going to support it. So they kind of just keep migrating down. It's like, oh, we got food, and keep
yep,
going. The bears will follow.
yep. And it's a similar deal where Montana Department of Conservation, they don't really admit to where they actually are. Yeah, as the crow flies right now, they admit that there's grizzlies 70 miles from us. So if you're being realistic, they're probably going to be passing through in the next few years. Maybe not a resident population of grizzlies, but they're going to be passing through, and something I think we need to keep our eye on. I think we need a season on them personally, but it's that'll
Yeah.
probably never happen. So
Well, not until they start getting so big.
yeah,
The numbers get so large, then they're going to have something.
yeah,
And I replaces the hire professional hunter that come in and clear out the herd. Well, it costs you for those guys. Well, as
right,
hunters, we're going to pay you to take care of your problem.
right, yeah,
That's sometimes some of these people don't understand the fact
yeah,
that we'll solve your problem for you.
right, yeah. But meanwhile, they're turning wolves loose in Colorado. I mean, you can argue that both ways, that yeah, they were once there, and my argument is that the wolf that they cut loose in Colorado is a Canadian timber wolf, which is not what was there indigenously. That would have been like
Right.
a prairie wolf. And so you unleashed a monster in an area that they're not supposed to be in. And it's hard enough to elk hunt in Colorado. And so I don't know. The whole predator thing is always a strange one. There's always people pulling both directions really hard on it.
Yeah.
So
If you're going to introduce an animal, it needs to be what was originally there before, not a different species. And there's
exactly.
so many times that they'll introduce an animal that's not native there, and then there's no predator for it. So then it gets out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with crops. It's like,
Yep.
oh, bring in something that this grows really good, and next thing you know, it takes over. Look at
Yep.
dandelions.
Yeah.
Brought in for a food source, and next thing you know, they're all over the place. And actually, it's one of the things you can't eat out of your yard unless you put chemicals on it. But
Yeah.
yeah, don't put weed killer down and then plan on eating the dandelions. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah, that's there's so many things that got to keep them straight. And just in fishing regulations, like on bass, sometimes there'll be a 21-inch length limit on the bass, and then all of a sudden, game parks will reduce it down to 15 inches. and everybody just has a big uproar. And I actually seen a thread I was looking at that had changed it on one of the lakes around here. And then somebody's getting complaining. And then so the game warden got on and actually explained why you raise it and you lower it. You know,
Yeah.
if it's 21 inch, they eat a lot of bait fish, you know, like your
Yep.
bluegill and your crappie and stuff. Well, that gets lower, it can't support the big fish. So you take the big fish out, let the bait fish grow, and then it gets the other way, and then you raise the limit. You just kept bouncing it back and forth, and you know that's
Right.
that's what they have to do with the deer around here. It's like, okay, how many did we kill? How many's out there? Do we need to raise the limits, lower the limits? Do we issue more season choice tags, which is one or two antler? I think this last year it was just one, but in some years it's two antlerless deer on a tag.
Yeah.
And so how many of the tags are we going to issue? Are we going to issue 20,000 tags, or going to issue 10,000 shears? So they constantly need to know. So that's why when you kill an animal and they want you to report it, you need to report it. It, so they get it accurate numbers, so they know exactly what's there, because they're looking and see, okay, how many did we kill this year versus last year? And in Nebraska, the numbers are down from last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So each year is going to be different. Maybe next year it'll be higher.
Right.
We never know.
Yeah. There's no cookie cutter system. It has to be a variable slot, whether it's fish or ungulates. It's always going to be changing. And luckily, we have a conservation department, if they're doing a good job, to recognize that slot needs to be adjusted one way or the other.
Yeah. And it's
So
like always put out. It's like, okay, here's the the permits for next year. This is what we're going to put out. They've analyzed all the data, and they've done their surveys and everything else, and so now they know what they're going to put out for the next year, and then to get done with that, they do it again for the next year and every year. And um,
yeah.
I'm glad they're doing it, so we actually have them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, hey Roy, I hate to cut you short, but I gotta get my boys to a jujitsu match here pretty soon.
Oh, they're in jujitsu, huh?
Yeah, they like combat sports, or I like them in combat sports anyway.
Yeah. I did
Yeah.
Hapkido for about 20 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
like to do it again, but I don't know my age. I don't know if I'm going to take the falls too well. So,
yeah. Yeah, we boxed for a while. I still like to box and stuff in my basement, and now that they're in jujitsu, we wrestle most nights, and so it's a lot of fun watching a 5 and 7 year old pick up some moves, and then after a few weeks they're bringing down dad. They know they know the sweet spots on how to get me down and
yeah,
how to roll me over. It's pretty cool.
yeah, they'll learn. They'll pick it up pretty quick.
Yeah.
Well, get them to their class, to their what is that, tournament they're fighting in.
No, it's just a practice
Oh,
tonight.
just practice. Okay. Yeah, get
Yeah.
them to the practice. And hey, it's been great talking with you. And we'll do this again sometime. And yeah, when you start getting some guide services going on, where you're looking for people to come up to guide, hey, we'll get back on the podcast again, and we'll talk about that, and hear some more hunting stories. And I always like to have a lot of hunting stories. I like those, and I
Yeah.
know a lot of people that are listening or watching like to hear those hunting stories. And yeah, we'll do this again. It's been really great talking with you. Remember, you can watch the video on Archery Talk 101 Facebook group, as well as on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. And the Audible, it's on the audio, the podcast is on Audible, as well as on Spotify and other places. So pick it up. If you have any questions, get a hold of us. We'll be glad to answer your questions. Thanks for being on
Awesome.
the show, Isaac. It's been a
Yeah,
lot
it was
of
a
fun.
pleasure meeting you. Thank you for having me on, Roy.
Yeah. My name is Roy Canterbury, and I've been hosting on Archery Talk 101.